Welcome to my presentation. My name is Simon, and I'm going to present to you my thesis that addresses market segmentation of the construction industry, and more specifically the urban mining segment within this industry. So, mining, construction and demolition, waste management, these are three common areas of industry practices today, and they have one thing in common, which is to manage resources in a specific environment. So recently the literature has presented a new kind of environment that arises the question, what about this kind of environments? We know for sure that the world population is increasing, more and more people are moving to cities, and therefore this kind of areas or environments will become more likely and more common in the future. This brings up the concept of urban mining emerges from this context, and it brings up the perspective of cities as mines to make use of resources found in areas such as these, in urban areas and in cities, for instance. The research shows, for instance, that natural resources are getting depleted and more resources are accumulated in the technosphere, and eventually most of it ends up in the urban waste streams, and it opens up for new opportunities and markets, and especially in the field of urban mining. So this thesis sets out to investigate what could characterize customers within the future urban mining market segment in terms of needs and priorities. Customers in this sense is addressed as stakeholders and actors that operates within the urban mining market segment. And with market segmentation, it involves dividing a broad market into a small and more specific segment that shares common characteristics such as common needs, interest, or values, for instance. The purpose with the study is clear. We want to understand a future scenario of how the market could look like, and therefore it can help stakeholders that are concerned with the construction industry in, for instance, preparing for a future scenario of new and different market circumstances. Furthermore, it can help in implementing and designing strategies to go towards a desired future, and in addition, it can aid in the development of new products and services which can be used to capitalize the urban mining market segment. And it goes back to the concept of having the future in your hand, which basically means that if you have if you know what the market, in which way the market might operate in the future, is much easier to operate and act based on that, rather than reactively acting on something unexpected and unknown. So foresight, it is a common practice in management studies. Research even suggests that humans on a daily basis even direct their thoughts towards predicting the future most of the time, and they can do so by simulating based on past experience to understand or to create future scenarios. The Foresight methodology framework was set as the research design in investigating, in answering these research questions, and It starts off by simply understanding the current market, which is done by interviews and observations to understand what kind of needs are common within the urban mining segment and what are the priorities in this. Thereafter, we can study how the past, since the past is given, we can understand, we can study the past in order to understand how the past shaped today. And in that sense, it's possible to get a pattern of how changes works within the industry. Combining this with current trends and emerging technologies, for instance, it is actually possible to create fractions or elements of the future, even if it's just a small piece. But it is possible to actually predict a few things based on this. So the research set out to do to apply qualitative and quantitative methods in understanding the current market. Representatives from 12 different firms were interviewed in order to identify and elicit needs that is shared across firms within the urban mining segment, and observations also complemented this part of the research. So it resulted in 12 primary needs that can, in general, or that can be said shared across firms that operates within the urban mining segment, and these were further prioritized in terms of relative importance through a survey in which 67 respondents answered of 44 different firms. And statistically, these results are enough to actually generalize and represent the whole population of Sweden in this industry. So this resulted in a list of a priority of a number of needs. We can, for instance, see that in the top, prevent spread of hazardous waste were prioritized as among the most important needs. One need that was considered of very low relative importance is the design to consider the product life cycle. And yeah, it's a lot of details, but if we study this in a more higher level, we can say that safety needs that relates to safety, environmental and social care are among the highest prioritized issues according to the results. And space, life cycle design, machine tools, flexibility were considered among the lowest prioritized issues. So now when we have an understanding of the current market, it is possible to use this as directions in a literature review of trends that shows more or less a general direction of where the development is going. The challenge here is that trends comes in a wide range of different kinds of trends. Osterwalder, for instance, mentions 4 categories: technology, regulatory, societal and cultural, socio-economic. The thesis limits to primarily study technology trends, and does so by review a lot of emerging technologies, and do so by sampling technologies in order to identify a trend. So this is one example of a technology, autonomous machines. This is a technology that has been adopted by Volvo and IBM in replacing humans in repetitive and enduring tasks. For instance, this wheel loader is fully autonomous and can operate without and driver and operator. So this is just one specific technology, but along with multiple ones, it can represent and support this trend, the increased use of advanced robotics and machines, for instance. This is another example of a project that was finished this year. This block in the center is a block in Kristianstad that NCC constructed, and it was rewarded as the best construction project in Sweden 2015. The reason to this was that NCC, they used a virtual design tool for planning and in the design phase to involve partners, clients, and other contractors in the pre-phase of the project, which helped the project to actually save cost, saved budgeted cost with 10%, and even finished good time well before the project time limit. And NCC is among the first adopters of this technology, with Stanford in the forefront of the research in applied 3D technology within the construction industry. Urbanization is a demographic trend that is quite obvious in this topic of research. More and more people are moving to cities, and cities are expected to grow bigger and more denser in the future. Urban mining itself might have big implications. It might have big implications on urban mining as it is urban mining itself, because it might more people living in cities might lead to stricter legislation and regulations in, for instance, rules and societal rules. For instance, firms that operate in the future urban mining is expected to comply with stricter rules regarding safety, noise levels, and emissions. Mostly like citizens need to conform to this kind of rules. So these were some of the trends that I can present within the time frame of this presentation, but some conclusions can be drawn from the thesis. For instance, needs related to safety and environment and social care remain among the top prioritized needs within the segment, both in the future and today. The results indicates that safety and life cycle design issues are suggested to grow significantly more important in the future. Life cycle consideration were considered quite low in priority today, but the analysis and results states that or indicates that this will grow much more important. But how much important is hard to say. So these findings can have implications on industry, as it allows stakeholders that are concerned with the construction industry to proactively plan and organize the organizations to meet what is likely to change in the future market. The research contributes to the field of urban mining by highlighting market opportunities within the field that there are actually call for papers for. And with that, I want to thank you for the presentation, for listening.